So we will be reviewing tonight two main Agile framework, which is Scrum and Kanban. We have multiple framework when it comes to Agile, but we have two main framework. And I always advise everybody who is going to interview to always mention that you have at least one Kanban team and one Scrum team. Why is it important? Because those recruiters, they want you to know both the minimum is two, and both framework are very, very important. If you know how to manage Kanban and you know how to handle Scrum, then you have a good foundation when it comes to Agile. We will dive into that now, and with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And for those who already took the class, you know that this is chapter 2, but there are many things that have been upgraded or updated based on the market demand, right? Because our course, we always try to adapt the course with what is happening in the market. So you will notice that we have changed the content drastically, actually. Okay, so let's get started. So when it comes to Agile, last time we talked about the need of Agile. Why is it important that companies are moving from Agile to from waterfall to Agile? And tonight we want to talk about Agile. When we come to Agile, what do we understand by Agile? And you will see that Agile is mainly, we practice Agile mainly for software development. But Agile can be applied for anything, whether you are building a house, whether you are cooking. Agile just means that you break complex situation, complex project into smaller increment. And then you make that small increment that we call prototype. And then through that prototype now, you can replicate the same experience and scale out that prototype to make a bigger project. Now, we have 4 core values of Agile. And that was coming from what Agile Manifesto. They created 4 values and 12 principles. So, and this should be your Bible. You should know what are the core values. Individual and interaction over processing and tools. They want people to interact. They want you to talk. They want you to get into the meeting and discuss than using process and tools to manage the work like in the waterfall world. They want a working software over comprehensive document. If you understand waterfall is all about signing the document. That means at any point of time, every contract has to be signed. When you discuss the scope, you agree with the client, you sign a document. When you agree on the budget, you sign a document. When you agree on the plan, you sign a document. It doesn't happen like that with Agile. Why? Because Agile really, when you start an Agile project, you don't even know what will be the outcome. You don't even know the entire scope. You just have enough idea to start the project, but you don't really know how it's going to turn out, how the market is going to accept the product. And that is why Agile have that flexibility of adapting based on the market demand, based on the change, and the change can even happen even at the last level of the project. Now, they want customer collaboration more than contract negotiation. They are not there to do contract negotiation. They want people to discuss. They want people to give feedback. That's what Agile is looking to achieve. There was responding to change even at the last minute over, and why is it important to respond to change over, following a plan? Waterfall is all about, they have a plan. Okay, we do this and do this and do this to the end, and they don't change. When you sign a document, that is exactly what is going to happen. In the Agile world, no, we are flexible. And we have these 12 principles that you can go over. I will quickly just browse through that. On the principle, actually, they summarize this principle, these 12 principles into 4 core values. And this is available. You can have access to it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but those principles are the principles that govern Agile. Now, those principles, as you will notice very quickly, is going to appear in different frameworks. So now when it comes to culture, when it comes to Agile culture, the main thing that Agile emphasizes on is what? Collaboration. They want the customer to be part of the project. They want them to participate from the beginning to the end. And the second big thing is what? Cultivation. They want people to evaluate, to check and balance and validate and come back to their point and understand what they are doing, learn from their mistake. And also you will notice that competence and control is really like 3% or 9%. So the main thing on them is making sure that they are discovering as they are learning, they are collaborating in their learning process. And that is why people in the company are moving into Agile. Why? Because Agile is all about just-in-time processing. You gather just exactly what you need so that you can go into the market and get the feedback from the customer. And, you know, it's extremely, extremely helpful because by leveraging Agile, your result is higher. In terms of return of investment, you have a higher return on investment. And we will see very, very shortly when we go through some of the area. But these are the main Agile framework. You see that we have Scrum, extreme programming, feature-driven development, lean software development, dynamic system development, Kanban, and much more. We have much more. Now, at some point, Agile can be scalable. So when Agile is at the Agile level, when it's not scaled, you will see that it's Scrum, Kanban, and all those development, test-driven development, feature-driven development, extreme programming, crystal clear. We have all those frameworks. But now, when it comes to large team, when it comes to enterprise level, then we talk about scale Agile framework. We talk about large scale Agile. We have discipline Agile delivery. We have multiple scale Agile, but the main one is SAFe. And we talked about that last time. But today we are not going to be talking about SAFe. We will be talking about Scrum. Do you know why? Scrum represents 56% of the frame of the in terms of usage. So Scrum is extremely, extremely strong. And that is why. And you will see that others are coming after Scrum. Even if you see Kanban is a little bit, it's coming later, but what happened? If you see something like Scrumban, Scrumban just means a mixture of Kanban and Scrum. So, because you see most companies kind of mix Kanban and Scrum together because Agile is all about flexibility, and every company have their way to pick whatever is useful for them and adjust based on their culture. Now, and you will hear a lot about, hey, why do we have to, are we Agile, are we being Agile, or are we doing Agile? Most companies are doing Agile, but they are not being Agile. That means what? Doing Agile means you do maybe your Scrum ceremony, you do your daily stand-up, you create user story, but you are not Agile. Why? Because maybe you don't really believe in self-organization when it comes to team. You want to push the work to your team. Maybe you don't really coach the team the way it should be. Maybe you don't focus on your customer satisfaction. There are many things that make you become Agile. That means you first embrace Agile and do Agile, and then you become Agile. You create a culture of Agile in your organization, and that's the main thing. Now, Agile project go through phases, just like project management. But the difference is that this is iterative. That means it doesn't have to go, it's not linear, right? It's cyclical. They have to go in circle. Whenever they want to do it, maybe during the sprint, they go through the entire process again. Of course, it starts with the concept where the project and the vision has to be there. You have to know what you are building. And then you have to know, when you know what you are building, you want to gather the requirement and discuss that requirement with the client. And then you want to build the team, put the team in place and have a plan. And you also have to have a release plan. And now you have to be able to track on the production, how things are developing. And then when you finish, you have to monitor that, maybe that software that you have built until the end of the cycle, right? The end of life of that specific software. Now, of course, Agile have limitation and Agile also have advantage. Now, let's go through that because it's very important, because when you go to your interview, they will ask you, do you really think Agile can solve all the problem? You will say no, right? You cannot say that no, Agile is one size fit all. No. Why? Let's talk about advantage first. Is the time to the market is very short, right? You reduce the time to the market, which is good because you get the feedback faster, and because you get the feedback faster, you can adjust your product accordingly. So it's a good thing. Secondly, you want to have that high stability in the workload. You don't want people to be overwhelmed by the work. You want a lightweight, they call it lightweighted system. Now you want to take just enough to work on so that you can deliver. And you want that flexibility in your plan. You don't want to have a plan that you cannot change. And Agile is very good on that. You want to achieve the high quality. Why? Because you want to get the customer feedback and adjust based on their feedback. That is why you achieve the highest quality. And also, you want your developer to focus on implementing the software. When they develop, they want to, that's why we talk about continuous integration, continuous deployment. They want to implement what they are developing. And that is why Agile and DevOps are like brother and sister. They work together to make a high return of investment when it comes to software development. Now, what is the problem with Agile? Customer might not be available. And that is a problem. You want to involve them in the project, but if they are not available, what do you do? Are you going to force them to be there and to give you feedback? It becomes difficult. And lack of documentation. Agile doesn't really make emphasis on documentation. That means there's not a book that you have to follow. That's why when you get a job as a Scrum Master, as an Agile project manager, you don't have any book that you are following. It's really like they're expecting you to deliver, and sometimes you don't have any orientation in terms of delivering the result because they don't want to emphasize on documentation so much. Okay. And then Agile is not very practical when it comes to large team. That is why they scale out Agile, right? And also lack of support in the critical system. Why? Because let's just imagine that you are building a software. If you want to build a software to delivery and you don't have all the skill needed to build that software, what happened? You can face some kind of shortage, right? So they want every Agile team to be able to start a project and finish it without depending on somebody from outside. And sometimes it doesn't work like that because we know what is happening in the market. So now this was just a very quick introduction. This is the chapter 2, is just to show us Agile as a whole. Now let's come back to the main topic of the day. Like I promised, I will be talking about Kanban and Scrum today. But before that, I want to pause here and ask question. Any questions so far on Agile as overview?
I'm not sure whether this is a question or statement, but I guess I would think it's both a question and statement, because how do you I want to say, let me just give you a scenario first. I've interviewed for a Scrum Master position, but maybe like 4 or 5 times. But after reflecting, I realized that it wasn't partially because I didn't know what I was talking about. Partially it's because their hiring manager themselves have a different understanding of what Agile is and how do I educate. Because for me, I feel like at this point, I want to be able to do what you just did. Also in my interview, educate the hiring manager, because some of them, they contradict the information that you know. Because for me, I go from the Agile Manifesto and the 12 principles and the values. So they say things that are not there, and then you ask yourself, where did they get this from? But because since you are being interviewed, you don't really feel like you have the power to challenge them. So my question is, how would I, in an interview, educate my hiring manager on this, or on Agile, or maybe the Scrum principles or values, just to make sure that, I mean, they're saying what they're asking me to do, they're saying the right thing, but without being offensive at the same time.
What I would say is that you have to be strategic when you come to interview. Why? You have to be like, you have to try to dance on their way, right? Let's say if you feel like your hiring manager is not so much agile, don't speak too much agile. You will turn them off right away. Does that make sense? So, but if you feel like your hiring manager believes so much in agile, then emphasize so much in agile. I will take an example. A few months ago, I was going to an interview, and they have hired more than 6 delivery managers on that very position, and he didn't work out. Why? Because they have a very strong team, and those teams are high performing team, but they are not very open to change. And here is the manager, the manager who is trying to hire somebody. He wanting to be more agile, but okay. So the program manager who need the person, so let's say the agile delivery manager want to work under that program manager, and the program manager is all about like, I don't want you to come and push my team away. I want them to deliver what they are delivering. Yes, you want to try to implement agile, but don't be too much. Don't push them too hard. You see? So when I'm talking to the first manager, I speak his word. He's wanting to be implemented, but he doesn't want to break things out, right? He want you to be strategic. But the other manager, when I talk to her, I don't really talk about agile so much. I talk about building a relationship, working with the team to deliver highest value. I don't talk about, hey, making them to change, to follow this path. No. So what am I trying to say? When you come to interview, you have to be very, very, very strategic in your answer. You have to, first, most of the interview, they will send you the LinkedIn profile on your recruiter. Go and check it out. It's extremely important, because when you check their LinkedIn out, you see their background. Now you can speak based on that. If it's somebody who have a Scrum Master license, or maybe product owner license, whatever it is, then they will be very, very agile oriented. But if you're just an IT manager coming to hire you, or a QA, somebody you have no idea about agile, you don't be too much agile. I don't know if I answer your question, Bieda.
Oh yes, I think it did. I think it did. Just I was trying to
So
kind
don't try
of
to
get around
educate
that.
them. They will not. They won't lag you. They won't lag, unless they're expecting you to come. Maybe they're transitioning. They don't know what to do. They're looking for you to come and change things. Then you can educate them, because sometimes they are facing some issue. They need you to tell them what to do. Then you are there to help them and say, oh, in my previous experience, this is what I apply, and this is how it worked out.
Okay.
Any other question? That was a good pointer. Any other question, experience that somebody want to share? Okay, so I'm sharing my screen back now. So this time we will be talking about Scrum and Kanban. Now, I will emphasize on few slides much, and some I will just flat through it, and you can go back and read it, because it's just about you reading it. So let's talk about Scrum and Kanban. And this, why am I emphasizing on this? Because you get that in your interview. And you will see on your resume or in your business case, Usually on your business case, it's all about, okay, I work with two Agile team, one Scrum team, one Kanban team. Why is it important? Because they want most manager want or have that expectation of you be able to handle both and understand both framework. Let's start with Scrum. And these are the area that we want to evaluate them on. Okay. So let's talk on the origin. What happened? Scrum was born was born because of software development project. Those software development project were there, and they didn't like the way it was going to happening. That is why they created Scrum. But Agile was born based on the lean manufacturing. When it comes to lean manufacturing, you kind of see Toyota. Toyota is the one implementing lean manufacturing. So now it's in the manufacturing that Kanban was born. And I will explain both framework to you. The second thing is what? Ideology. What happened? Scrum is meant to what? To solve complex problem while delivering valuable product. And Kanban is used to visualize, a workflow and the processes. That means what? Kanban is meant for work like maintenance work, support work, where they want to have a visual, kind of smooth workflow. Scrum is for project like long-term project, complex project that they want to break it into pieces and deliver and learn from that delivery to improve their backlog. You see, so it's two different framework, and those framework is used in two different contexts. Now, when it comes to practicing Scrum, you will understand name like sprint planning, sprint, daily Scrum, Scrum review. Oh, what am I doing? Sprint review and sprint retrospective. Those are the 5 ceremonies when it comes to Scrum. We will go into that in detail. But when it comes to Kanban, they don't have any sprint. They have what we call visualize the flow of work. They want the work to flow. They have what they call limit work in progress. They call it WIP, the WIP limit. That means they want to make sure that every column have a specific limit of or specific number of work items. Let's say they can decide that on the board, I wish I have my board here to show you. Let me just Google a Kanban board and show you what I mean. Kanban board. Okay, let me share my screen back here. So this is an example of a board, of a Kanban board. So when they say limit work in progress, let's say that this column, maybe they designed this column to accommodate only 4 work items. That means if you put 5, it's going to flag like emergency, it's going to flag red to say that you have exceeded the limit of the work that was supposed to be on this column. Maybe this was limited to 3. You see what I'm saying? Why is it like that? They don't want what they call bottleneck. That's why it's all about lean thinking. They don't want a work to be accumulated in one specific stage, right? So when you develop a work, you want to go maybe from the backlog to the to-do column. Somebody put the work from the to-do column, start working on it. They call it in progress. When they finish working on it, they send it in the done column so that it can be validated and done, right? So if there are too much work in the progress, then it's overwhelming. So Kanban is all about tracking that, and we talk about that. We talk about those kind of metrics. Scrum doesn't work like that. You can have multiple work in progress with Scrum, it doesn't matter. But Scrum have a set of work for that specific sprint. You see, so Scrum speak the word of sprint, Kanban speak a word of week. That means work in progress limit. This is extremely important because it comes a lot in your interview. Now, let's go back to my screen. So we talk about limit work in progress. They want to limit the number of work that has to be in progress. When they talk about daily Scrum here, they want to talk about managed flow. Like I said, they are avoiding bottleneck. They don't want something that is overloaded in one specific step. They want things to flow. They want to make sure that the process policy is explicit enough. And then they want to, improve and experiment constantly. They don't need to wait until the end of the sprint to do it. So it's a flow of work. It keep going. They don't have like a set time where they stop and evaluate. No, they can evaluate throughout. Now, most companies, what do? They can use what they call Scrum. That means they are still speaking in terms of sprint, but they are in the Kanban framework. So that means the work is flowing through Kanban, but they have 2 week sprint. And at the end of 2 week sprint, they still kind of have some kind of sprint review, but it's not really Scrum. It's not also really Kanban. It's what they call Scrum. It's a mixture of two. Okay. Now let's talk about role. In the Kanban, in the Scrum, we talk about product owner, Scrum master, and developers. Those are the 3 main roles when it comes to Scrum. That's why you understand, you see Scrum master. But the name Scrum master actually is disappearing. And now they prefer to say Agile project manager, Agile delivery lead, Agile delivery manager. Why? Because they want you to do more than just Scrum. If you have to manage Kanban, then you are not just a Scrum master. If you have to practice extreme programming, then you are not just a Scrum master. That's why they want to, the world, you will see that everyone, maybe when you see one Scrum job, you will see about 20 project management work. Why? Because they are moving away from Scrum to project manager or Agile project management. They have different name. Okay. Now, the role in the Kanban is not very identified. It's just like you can say they are engineer. Everybody will go and pick the work, just work on that work. They don't have any specific title. So, and then the last one is what? Metrics. When it comes to metrics, when it's Scrum, they talk about velocity. They talk about burn down chart. Why? Because they have a set of goals. They have a set of objectives that they want to meet at the end of the sprint, which can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. When it comes to Kanban, they talk about what? Lead time, cycle time, cumulative flow diagram, and we talk about that more. So you speak a different language. Throughput, the ability of delivering the work that is on the pipeline. We talk about some of that, and we will also elaborate on that later on in the class. Now, let's see another difference in terms of the role and a few other areas. When it comes to Kanban, the role of project manager can be optional, but you require see project manager in Kanban sometimes. Okay, like I advise you, for instance, to say that if you say that you have a Kanban team, talk about something like vulnerability management, talk about something like support work, any kind of support. It can be bug management, but I always suggest people to say, okay, why don't you talk about active vulnerability management? Why is it important? Because when you are developing software, you also want to stay compliant. And to stay compliant, you want to make sure that any initiative that come in that area has to be handled. And so by explaining to your recruiter that, okay, I have a team of vulnerability, the team in charge of vulnerability management, because the scope of work or the priority change quickly based on the service level agreement, they know that you know what you're talking about. That's why I always advise you to do that. Now, when it comes to Scrum, like I said, Scrum Master role should be required, even though it's not always the case, right? And then tasks are shared by everyone when it comes to Kanban. But when it comes to Scrum, tasks are the assigned tasks. For those who have Jira or Rally experience, you assign that to your developer. What happened during the sprint planning? You say, okay, developer A, developer A will say, okay, I'm going to take this story. You assign that story to him. It doesn't work like that with Kanban. Okay. Everybody can pull any work and start working on it. Now, when it comes to Kanban, is they just work as needed. They don't have a limited time. But when it comes to Scrum, they have time box, 2 weeks, 4 weeks event. Okay. And then Kanban, you can make change at any point of time during the project, right? That's what I said. It's very appropriate for support work, for work that changes priority very quickly. That means if today you are working on, a story, and let's say that you are working on the green story today, and then you realize that pink story is critical than green story, you can move this up easily. You can start working on this and will be working on this. So priority keep changing, or you can bring a new work from the backlog and start working on it, and leave every other work here and start working on it. But it doesn't work like that with Scrum. Why? Because Scrum, they have a committed story that they have to work in during the specific time, which is the sprint. Now, the productivity is measured by what they call cycle time. And we will talk about that cycle time. I will show you a little bit. But the productivity in the Scrum world is measured by the story point completed during the sprint. That's what we call velocity. They talk about velocity when it comes to sprint or Scrum. They talk about cycle time, lead time when it comes to Kanban. Okay, so normally this should come, I will come back to this. Oops. I want to show you something and come back to it. I didn't organize my slide nicely, so bear with me a little bit. So when they talk about lead time, cycle time, what happened? Lead time is the time that the story gets created. You remember, when you have a requirement, you create a story. That story have a date on that. When you create a story, it has a date. And when that story gets pulled into the in progress, then he start counting as a lead time. So when you start working on the story, they start counting that. They call it cycle time. That may start the work here, and then you finish the work. This is the cycle time, right? The time you start working on a story until the time you finish the story is cycle time. But the time when you create a story to the time that you finish the story is what they call lead time. Okay, so your metric want to understand how long it takes for a story to go from creation to completion. How long it takes for the story to go from start to finish. Those are the metrics that you track on Kanban. Those you can only see this on Kanban. You don't see this on Scrum. And you can see here, they talked about what? They talk about cumulative flow diagram. Like this is a cumulative flow diagram. It's giving you a work based on every stage or every column, if you may say that, right? Like this could be the column where, let's say the backlog, and this can be start, let's say in progress, and this can be done, right? Like here, let's read the legend so that it can make our life simple. So the done column is blue, the ready to start is brown, in progress is orange. So what happened? The lead time here, the lead time is the time that go from start, from the time that the work was created to the time that the work was done. The second time is the time that the work have started, that somebody started working on the work, to the time that the work was done. So and this here, the whole the whole picture is what they call the cumulative flow diagram. You want to see if some area, let's say that this color is too big, like huge, it shows that there is some kind of bottleneck. Or you will see that some color is very tiny, very small, while other color are bigger. You don't want that. You want a flow. You want it to flow naturally. That's why they limit the work in progress. Now, any question on this? Okay. So now let's talk about Scrum. Why is it important that we talk about Scrum more? Because you are the Scrum Master. Most of those companies practice Scrum or Scrumban, but you still do Scrum, okay? So that is why Scrum is very, very important when you come to, it's the heart of Agile. Scrum is the heart of Agile. And when do you do the Scrum? When do you start the Scrum? What is the barely minimum when it comes to Scrum? Is what you want to have a common understanding of the Scrum role. You want to make sure that you have the right people in place, maybe a PO, a Scrum Master, and a developer. And also the next thing that you want to do is what? Having the initial product vision. You want to know what you want to build. You don't have to know the entire picture. You just have to have an initial vision of what you want to do. And then you also want to have an initial release planning. You don't need to know that what will happen at the end. You just want to have a prototype, an idea of the prototype that you want to build. That's what they call minimum viable product, MVP. Because they focus on the MVP, they put their 80% effort on the MVP, they deliver, and they get the feedback, and they improve the process. That's what Scrum is all about. Now, you also want to be able to write story, that we call user story. So instead of speaking about requirement, they prefer to say user story. When it's in project management, you talk about requirement. For instance, if you want to build a 5-bedroom, you say, okay, I want a large kitchen. In project management, they will say, I want a kitchen with maybe stove, with whatever, microwave, with refrigerator. And in Scrum, you don't speak the language like that. You say, I want a stove in my kitchen so that I'm able to cook food whenever I need it. I needed it, right? You see, they speak, it's a story. Like as a mom, I want a stove in my kitchen so that I will be able to cook food whenever I need it. That is the user story. So they take the requirement and they make it as a story. I need a refrigerator so that I will be able to store all my fresh food so that everything can stay, fresh. That is a user story. So when it comes to Scrum, you speak user story. When it comes to project management, you speak in terms of requirement. Now, and where do you store that user story? You store that user story into what we call backlog, a product backlog. We talk about that more. So when you do that now, what happens? That product backlog is also giving you an idea of your first sprint. You also want to have a definition of done. You want to make sure that you agree with your team. What do you call by definition of done? What makes your story done? You want to agree on what makes the story called done. So you have to agree. The code have to be reviewed. Maybe it has to be peer review. Maybe it has to be tested, and the testing have to pass. Maybe the QA have to have at least 95% pass, things like that. And also, you want to plan for a minimum infrastructure. Are you going to use CRTD pipeline for delivery? Are you going to use what kind of UAT for testing? Things like that. So you want to agree on that. Now, what is it that Scrum is so much, like people apply Scrum so much? Because it's mainly empirical. That means you really don't know how things are going to turn out. You just build it and then send it to the market, and people give you feedback and you adjust based on the feedback. So from the beginning, you don't know what you are building. Really, you don't know at the end what will be the end product. That's what they call empirical, right? You learn from experience. You don't have a set of knowledge already and apply it like in the waterfall. And also, they talk about another keyword is what? Iterative and incremental. You have to deliver constantly. Every 2 weeks, you want to deliver a piece of software that is working. That's what it means. And then they talk about the pillar. We talk about that pillar, transparency, inspection, and we talk about that here. So we have 3 main pillars when it comes to Scrum. And this is extremely important. You as a Scrum Master, Agile Project Manager, this is what we guide you in coaching your team. The first thing is transparency. When it comes to transparency is what you want, everybody can have access to your backlog and see what you guys are doing. Everybody can come to your stand up and know what you are doing on working on every single day. So you don't hide your backlog from people, right? Even if your customer want to access, they can access your backlog and see where you stand. And every day when you say, okay, yesterday I work on this, today I'm working on this, and I don't have any impediment. What we are trying to do here is what? Inspection. You are inspecting the work at any point of time, every single day, and also at the end of the sprint. You are inspecting to see if you are moving toward the sprint goal. And your job as a Scrum Master is to make sure that, hey, are we on track to reach the goal? If they have a blocker, how can we unblock this? How bad can this affect our delivery this sprint? Those are the questions that you have to be asking yourself constantly. And the last one, but not the least, is what? Adaptation. Adaptation comes to what? When people provide you feedback every day during the stand-up, you get the feedback also. And at the end of the sprint, you get the feedback from the client, the customer. During the stand-up, you can get the feedback from the PO. PO can give you some kind of clarification on what you are doing so that you can adjust whatever you are working on. So those are the pillars of Scrum. Now, when we talk about Agile project management, and like I'm telling you, this is the name of the game. If you are an Agile project manager, that means you have a background of a project manager combined to Agile. People like you on the market. They look for you. Every day you will receive requests from multiple people calling you and try to beg you for work. I am telling you, why is it important? Because you as a project manager, now let me talk about project manager, and then I combine that with Agile. If you are a project manager, you have that background of managing project from the beginning to the end, what they call from the initiation to the closing. Last time we talked about that, where I told you we have 5 process groups: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, closing. Somebody raised the hand. Gillian, do you want to say something?
Yes, Mama, I have a question. I was like, about the 3 pillars of the transparency. How do you, as a Scrum Master, make sure that your work is transparent? That is making sure that your work can be seen by the customer or or your team members. Is it by using the tools, or if my question is how do you make your work transparent? Thank you.
That's a very good question, and they actually asked that question during the interview. So the first thing we do is your backlog is transparent, right? Your backlog lives somewhere. Your backlog is either in Jira or in Rally or in Azure DevOps. Okay, so people can access that backlog whenever they want. The second thing is during the stand-up, you cannot block people from coming to the stand-up. You want to, if a stakeholder want to ask for something, they can show up to the stand-up and ask questions to the team if they want to. So it's transparent. And the team tell you that, hey, we are working on this. This is the goal we are trying to achieve. This is why we are working toward this goal. Today, I'm working on this story. Tomorrow, I will be. Yesterday, I worked on this story. Today, I'm working on this story. And here is the issue that I'm facing. That shows transparency. And another last piece of transparency is during the review. When the work is done, they bring that work to showcase to those clients, and they have to give their feedback. You don't showcase just for them to say, oh, that is nice. You also have to be open enough to accept criticism, right? Negative feedback. That is transparency. So you as a Scrum Master, your job is to facilitate and make sure that everybody speak, make sure that they really relate what is happening, make sure that everybody can see your metric. You are not hiding anything anyway. You also want to make sure that if the team are working on a specific, that the work is not hidden, meaning that every task that they are doing, encourage them to track those tasks under their story so that you can easily know how they are progressing in their daily duty. Does that make sense, Gillian?
Yes, Mama Juliet, thank you. It makes sense.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say here is that when it comes to project management, when you have a project, that means you have a vision, right? You are visualizing something. I always said things get created how many times? 3 times. First in your mind, then on the paper, and then in reality, right? Let's see it with Agile. First, you have a vision. It's really in the mind. Nobody knows it. Nobody sees it except you who has a vision. Secondly, you put it on the paper. That's why we do what? We do this product roadmap. That means you have a clear vision, you put it on the paper, you say, okay, if I want to build this, how do I have to do it? Where do I start? During the Q1, this is Q1 mean quarter 1, right? First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So you want to know exactly where you are going. And this is what they call roadmap, product roadmap. Is it going to take you 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 1 month, 2 months, whatever it is? You want to have a roadmap. And you also want to have a release plan. You have to have a plan for release. After 1 month, what do you want to see on the release? Do you want to see this? Do you want to see that? Okay. Now, if you choose to use Scrum, what happened? You want to make sure that on the backlog, things that are up here are the things that they will be working on. Things that are at the bottom are the things that they will be working on later, maybe not. Okay. And things that are up here, you want to make sure that those things meet what they call what? The definition of ready. The definition of ready means this story, every story that is here is estimated. You want to make sure that every story that is here meet what they call invest criteria, meaning it's independent, negotiable, valuable, invest, INVE, estimable, small, and testable, right? So every story has to have that. Every story here has to have a clear description. Every story here has to have what they call the acceptance criteria, they call EC, before they move into here, which is the sprint planning. So this, when the story meet the definition of ready, then you can move it during the sprint planning into the sprint backlog. And you move it with the direction of your developers, right? So the PO will share the vision and the developer will tell you what to move here. And then you start moving things here until you meet the velocity of that specific team. And then you stop. Okay. And then every day now you go through it. Now you are just focusing on it. You are not focusing on it anymore. You focus on your sprint backlog every single day and see how they are progressing. How they are progressing every single day. Okay. 15 minutes, they tell you how they are trying to meet the goal of the sprint. And if they have a new functionality, there normally you don't really want a new work to come in, but it could come in. Okay, but you don't want too much work to come in during the sprint. It's not the best practice. So, but just keep in mind that if too much work can come in during the sprint, then you have to change the strategy. You can either leave a higher buffer. That means you don't overload the team with too much work because you know that new work will be coming in. Or you can have a small team. You have multiple people, maybe 1 or 2 people working on the work, the flat-in work, the work that will be coming in during the sprint. This is what I'm telling you is what they will ask you in the interview. How do you make sure that you handle the uncommitted work, unplanned work? You can set either, you can set one of the two. I either make sure that I leave enough buffer for my team. So after few sprints, you can have an idea of how much work can be coming in. And then you plan ahead by leaving them more buffer, more room to accommodate that work. Or you can say that we have created a Kanban board where we have 1 or 2 engineers working on those Kanban for the fly-in work. This is your story. Please, this will land you a job. I'm telling you. Now, let's visualize that in a different way. Because when most of you have been asking questions, where do I even get started? Because most of you will get in the work that already have been, this phase will be already done. And this is done by the project manager or business champion, whatever it is. Sometimes you are not there. But what if you are part of this at the beginning? And even you are not part of this, they want you to know what happened here. So the preliminary work is what? During the initiation, what do you do? You want to have a business case of the project. I mean, when you have a vision, you want to put the business case, the business value. What are you working on? What do they need to work on? What are they even plan to work on that? Who is funding that? Who is the sponsor of that product? The contract negotiation, who is the client? How many million of contract are we putting down? You want to know what kind of product are we going to start working on? You want to know what is the release plan that we have in place? What kind of team do we need to have? So all this have to be done before your first sprint start. Your first sprint, you want to make sure that you already have a backlog of 1 or 2 sprint ready before you start your first sprint. Okay. When you start the first sprint, you have a backlog. The backlog is there full of requirement, and you break it into user story. And then during the sprint planning, you already groom. I prefer the name refine. The backlog have to be refined. The refinement means what? You have done the estimation. You have described the story enough. You have created the user acceptance criteria. What am I saying? The acceptance criteria. You have created the requirement for the QA or the QC. When you have that on the story is refined. When the story is refined during the sprint planning is where you commit the story, the team commit for that story. You have different story, they commit for it up to their velocity. And now every day now you look for what they are doing. And then when they finish, they deliver the product increment, and they present that, they do the review, they do the repro, and they keep going. It's just they keep going like this, circle all the time. Now, as you can see in the different way. Have the planning, the architect will design it. When he design it, now it goes to the development. Those developers now will start developing that based on the priority, why they are doing whatever it is they are doing, like coding, testing, deployment. All this happened during one single sprint. Now let's talk about value. This is another key concept that you need to master as a Scrum Master, right? We have 5 Scrum value. Courage. Why courage is important? You want the team to have the courage to express themselves, to have the courage to say that they don't know, to have the courage to say that they did things wrong. You want them to be open enough to tell you that, okay, I tried this and I failed. It takes courage to tell them that, no, we cannot finish this work. No, we cannot accommodate this work this sprint. That is the first value you want to make sure that your team has. The second value is what? Focus. You want them to pay attention to the sprint goal. They are committed to that goal, and they want to keep the focus on that goal, on that sprint goal. You want them to be committed. If you say that you want to do something, do it. Don't commit on something and you don't deliver. You want people to be responsible, to take 100% responsibility of whatever they are working on. You want them to have the respect as a team member. You want them to respect other people's opinion. They want, they are a team. It's just like you are a mom with multiple children. You want everybody's voice to be heard without judging them. You want people to respect everybody's accent, culture, and all that. And I'm telling you, in the workplace, you will hear all kinds of accent. You will hear accent like mine, strong French accent. You will hear Indian accent. You will hear some accent that you don't even understand, but don't laugh at somebody. Don't stereotype anybody. Be respectful. That's what it means. And openness. You want the team to be open. They're open to tell you that, okay, this is not going to work. They're open to tell you that we are facing this challenge on the work, or that this team member is not really delivering what is expected. So those are the value, the 5 Scrum value that you have to know on top of your head every day. Now, why is it important to apply Scrum? Because customers are satisfied, right? They don't wait to the last minute to know what you are working on. You work with them. You work every 2 weeks, they know what you are working on. They are delighted. You want to improve the return on investment. You want to have more joy in your team, build more trust. You want to increase transparency in your team. That's why people are embracing Scrum, okay? Now, we already talked about role. Scrum is all about what? The product owner, Scrum Master, and the team. 5 ceremony, 3 role, and 3 artifacts, meaning what? The artifact is what? The product backlog is an artifact, the sprint backlog is an artifact, and the increment is an artifact. That's the core, this is the core knowledge of Scrum, nothing else. Now, here is how you visualize it. You get the requirement from the customer, from the subject matter expert, from the PO, whoever get the requirement. They got the requirement, they send it to the PO. Okay, the PO now put everything on the backlog and prioritize the backlog based on the value, based on the highest business value. We speak in terms of business value when it comes to product development. Now, during the sprint planning, the team will decide to select the thing from here, from this backlog, so that they can create what they call the sprint backlog. Remember, this has to meet the definition of ready. Maybe the story 1 to 5 must meet the definition of ready to be moved to the sprint backlog. When you move to the sprint backlog now, this is where the focus is on the sprint backlog. They forget about this for some time. They focus on this and then put it on the board and they start tracking the board every day. Every day they give their status report, and those you as a Scrum Master, you are making sure that, hey, they are doing the right thing. They are observing the time box. They've been transparent. They are saying, they are reporting their status properly. They are creating tasks under their story. Things like that. If the story is too many story open, maybe you want to do swarming or pairing, whatever it is, to facilitate that the story get closed on time, things like that. And then when they finish, they organize the demo. You as a Scrum Master, you are the one organizing the demo, but the PO is the one facilitating the demo, and the stakeholder give the feedback, and then if they like it, then they ship the product. And then you sit down now with your team and do the retro. During the retro, everybody participates as a team member. You don't include any stakeholder. It's just you, the product owner, and the developer. And everybody can give their feedback on how to improve as a team, how to improve the process. Okay. Now, here is another way to see it. It's the same way. Okay. And here is, let's go through this detail, because this, most of you, we have never been in this role. And your first day, like the first week, they might even ask you to start running your team. You want to be able to do this, okay? So like I was saying, here is what is happening here is, at the top of the backlog, what do you have? You want to have what they call it, the non-knows. That means the story that you know that this is something that we need. This is that, those things we need it, like if we don't have it, we won't have product. You know that very well. They have the highest value. Okay. Those are the product that has to be delivered very soon. That's what we call minimum viable product. Now at the bottom, you have a vague knowledge of this. It's the known unknown. You know that this move could happen, but we are not so sure. It goes to the bottom, right? This is the must-have features. This is the should-have features, something that should have or nice to have feature. It goes to the bottom, okay? So during the planning, what happened? Break down backlog into smaller piece. User story, smaller piece. Like I was taking fridge as an example. if you want to create, you want to put, you see the stove, you want to see the refrigerator, you want to create a story for the stove, you want to create a story for the refrigerator. That is breaking down. So you said the big feature can be building a kitchen, but in the kitchen you have multiple story. Stove can be one story, refrigerator another story, dishwasher another story. Just take it like this. That's how they talk about user story. I need to have a dishwasher so that I can be able to automatically wash run my dishwasher whenever I need it or whatever it is. That's what I mean. Now, the daily stand-up is where the Scrum Master, you remove impediment. And sometimes they will ask you, tell us an example of impediment that you remove. You have to have on top of your mind. Multiple impediment happen. It could be that a new team member just came and in going through onboarding, you want to organize the KT session. KT session is just a knowledge transfer session. And you want to make sure that they have anything, they have all the system logging that they need to be able to access the system. Remember, when you are new in a company, it's difficult. It takes you about 2 weeks to have access to even up to 1 month to have access to all the system. So as a Scrum Master, you want to make sure that your team member have access to the right system, have access to the right license so that they can do their work. Otherwise, they won't be able to do their work. That's an impediment. It could be that maybe they are relying on a customer to deliver a piece of a data, a piece of a software for your team to move for them to start working on their own commitment. You as a Scrum Master, you want to make sure that you follow up with that. You not just follow up, you follow through. You want to make sure that you resolve the issue. Maybe they are facing a licensing problem and they have opened the ticket, but the provider is taking too long. You take that ticket and you follow through that. Call the provider, say, hey, how soon can we get this? Maybe they have a server issue. The server is not working properly. Open the ticket, go through the support. These are impediments. Every single day you can have some. And if if your team is not mature, you will have more impediment. If they are mature, your job is to train them to handle their impediment. Most of them, it's not to you. You are not the one handle some of the impediment. You see, if you have a mature team, your role will be very obsolete. You can only run a meeting. Which is it the best role? I don't think so. Because if you are just running the meeting and you don't do anything and you feel very obsolete, you feel like you are not very useful on your role. Try to create problem and solve it so that you can justify your income, right? Okay, so now this is from day 2 to day 9, because the day 1 you are doing the sprint planning, right? You put the work together. Day 2 you do the stand-up, and from day 2 to day 1 you are doing the stand-up to review what you put together. Work collaboration, you have to work collaboratively, and on the same part of solution. If we are delivering a component, we all work on that component. Work on slices of functionality rather than working on the serial. That you don't work on, because sometimes you can say, okay, and so we're working on multiple things at the same time. Work on one or few things, deliver that, work on another thing, deliver that. And then you test those things as you go. You want to make sure that you do peer review. That means I finish doing my code, I send it to you, you review my code, you validate. Before we send it to the QA now validate, and then they do what they call integration testing or UAT testing, which is user acceptance testing, depending on the type of job that you have. You want to engage your end user early enough, right? Because you want to show them, hey, they want to come to the meeting and tell you, oh, we really need it to be this way. We really need it to have this color, so that you adapt, you adjust based on that. You want to produce working solution by day 9. You want to have a working software by day 9, because let's say this is 10-day sprint. So that means you have more story in the done column. That's what you want to see by day 9. If all of those stories are open by day 9, you want to worry as a Scrum Master. You want to ask your team what is happening. Why is it that all those stories are open? And also you want to do the grooming session, which is the refinement along the way, whenever. maybe once a week or twice a week. And then you want to do the review and the retro. Okay, and you learn the lesson, to implement that lesson from the that you got from that sprint to the next one. This is your job. Okay, we talk about artifact ceremony. You can go back to it if you want. Sometimes they will ask you, what is your team composition? Okay, as a Scrum Master, I know if you have a business case, you have different data based on the type of application you are working on. But let's say this is like a software application, right? You have the end user here, you have the domain expert, which is like a subject matter expert. You have the PO here, this guy is connecting with them every day. You have the business champion, they are giving him instruction on the product. And here you have your team. You have the QA, you have the developer here, maybe they are mainframe developer, there can be front end, back end, right? DevSecOps, when I say, or DevOps developer, DevOps engineer, or DevSecOps. DevSecOps engineer is that guy who understands development, security, and operation. Trust me, if you're a DevSecOps engineer, they love you. Company will beg to hire you. Or if you're a full stack developer, man, if that means a developer who can do front end and back end at the same time, man, you will never lack a job. So we have children, we are young, most of you here, some of you are young. Those are the skills that later on, you start with the Scrum Master, you can go and build those skills, you can become a full stack engineer, you can become a DevOps engineer, a DevSecOps, whatever it is. Because those are names that, man, you have those guys in your team. Some people in the team are so important that if they leave the team, the company can crash. That's how much important they could be. So you want to build your skill to be at that level one day. And those are those guys here. The architect. This guy, when they talk about architect, he's not about house. They are not building house. We are talking about software. Those guys have, you will see a lady, an architect, and I'm telling you, they are so sharp. You wonder, they already have the vision of how those systems have to connect, communicate together, and all that. They will tell you all kind of fancy things. They are the one designing all those prototypes, put them together for the developer now to pull it and start working on it. They are extremely important when it comes to an organization. Those are the roles. Those are skills that are out there, very, very hot skill that you have it, man, you will never worry about working, worry about job. We lack job because we don't have skill. You have skill, job will chase you after, and I can guarantee you. This is another way of seeing what I was saying, but here is mainly talking about time boxes. Okay, you want to see what time box do we have for each of those events. So during the sprint planning, it can, when it's a sprint of like 1 month, it can last to, normally it's 8 hours for 1 month or 4 hours for 2 weeks. Okay, maximum 4 hours for 2 weeks, right? To build this backlog. So they are there working. 4 hours is really when you didn't really groom your backlog properly. Because if you have refined, you have done a good job refining your backlog, it can take like 45 minutes done. Okay. Now, daily stand-up is 15 minutes a day. You don't want to take, remember, as a Scrum Master, you want to make sure that your developers are not distracted. You don't want them to be into too many meetings. You want them to focus on their work. You want them to be productive. So 15 minutes, they are gone. And you don't want them to have so many meetings during the day. You prefer to go to that meeting and bring them the feedback. And during the sprint review, maximum 4 hours for 1 month. But usually it's like 30 minutes, 1 hour, you're done. Sprint retro, normally 30 minutes, 1 hour, but then we say maximum 3 hours because you can have very, very, maybe a backlog of things that you want to discuss, okay? Now, I want to go through these few questions because it's very important for you. You as a Scrum Master, you want to have some kind of way of checking yourself, checking your team. Okay, you want to know, hey, does the product owner need any coaching on the backlog? You want to remember, hey, are you doing the backlog? If you feel like we are not doing the refinement as it is, you want to remind, do we have any refinement? Do you feel that we need an extra refinement? You want to check the backlog, make sure that things are, you have at least 2 sprint of work refined. We want to make sure that, oh, do we have all the requirement that is captured by the customer? This might be tough for you because you don't even know the product vision. But you want to have, hey, are those requirements small enough, the user story small enough to fit into one sprint? If they are too big, like big story, like 13 story point, or what you want to, if it's that, you want to know, why is it big like that? Can we break it down into smaller story point? You want to know, do we have a definition of done, right? Do we have a proper definition of done as a team? You know, empower the team to have something like that in place. You want to know, are we really writing the story the way we want to write it, right? Or what about the non-functional requirement, like security, speed, something that is not visible yet, but is important for the delivery of your software, for the quality of your software. You want to make sure that we are meeting the business goal. You don't want them to finish the work, and then when we send to production, we have a bunch of defect. We don't want that. Okay. So you also want to make sure that your team are happy. You want to create that environment of happiness. People are feeling secure. They feel happy in the team. They don't want you to manage them. They want you to help them. Okay. So you can read this. This really doesn't. Let's talk about this a little bit because this comes to the interview. Okay. There we ask you. Gideon, do you still have a question? Sorry.
Not for the moment.
Okay, because I saw your hand up. Okay, so let's talk about what is the difference between a Scrum Master and a project manager. A project manager, you would command and control to manage. That means you always tell, the way you tell to your team is that, okay, I need it to be done by this time, by this day. A Scrum Master, what do? You facilitate, you empower, you don't tell them what to do. You empower them to do things, but you don't tell them. You will tell them, when do you think this can be done? You see, the language is different when you are a Scrum Master. When do you think we can achieve this goal? But the developer will say, hey, the project manager, this needs to be done. This is the SLA, this is the service level agreement for this project, and we need to be done by then. Okay, you don't know how they do it. You just want them to finish it. Okay. They work directly, they work with the team, they direct the team, they tell you what to do. So that is a strong project manager. But now it's not like that anymore. They want a project manager who is agile. That's why when you are a project manager who apply agile, they love you. Okay. The Scrum Master coach the team. You coach the team on doing things, right? Okay, so the project manager make team perform. You push the team to perform. But the Scrum Master create an environment for the team to perform, right? The project manager want to get things done. They are the one pushing for things to be done. The Scrum Master empower the team to do things. The project manager monitor the team. You are there tracking, oh, you are off track, you are at risk, blah, blah, blah. But the Scrum Master, you facilitate event. You don't monitor anybody. And the project manager, you take on the risk management responsibility without asking the team. You are managing risk all the time. It's just hard operation work, but you need it. It's a very nice work though. The Scrum Master, what do? You kind of submissive to the team, because if your team if they don't like you, you cannot push them. You cannot really push them. It's not like that. They will fire you and they will leave them. So you want to keep your paycheck. So you just negotiate with them on what they want and try to adjust based on that. So you as a Scrum Master want to make sure that the agile practice is respected as well. Before we talk a little bit more about some event, let's pause here. I've been talking so much. Any question? This is the heart of your role as a Scrum Master. when you master that, you are confident to really express yourself when you come to interview. And one thing I want to tell you also is that if you don't like to learn, this field is not for you, honestly, because you have to learn every single day. Things change every single day, and you have to learn a new tools. You want to learn the new technology. You want to learn through the behavior of others. And if you don't like that, then I will tell you that this is not for you. And if you're very comfortable, just settle for less, like you just get your job and then you don't do anything else, you remember that you will be obsolete very soon. So I always, when you land your first job, put a plan to go for the next one. Learn a new skill, get certified. This is where you will know how to set yourself high. You constantly have to be in school learning. Okay, so let's go back to what we have and talk a little bit about. So Kanban, I told you in the Kanban, you want to is best for projects that have short term or change priority very frequently. Kanban is appropriate for that. Okay, so they respond to change very quickly. They have a shorter cycle time. You can start a story, you deliver that story in 2 days. In Scrum, you cannot start a story and you deliver in 2 days. Even you put it, it's going to be done, but you cannot deliver. Okay, so you can change the priority frequently, and you don't really need to get organized so much to start the Kanban work. Put the things there, move things around as you see fit. That's the benefit also. And it's mainly customer centric. Whatever customer need, you adjust based on that. So Kanban is very good. That's what I always tell you. Kanban is very good for vulnerability management because people can change priority. If today they want to work on password and tomorrow they change and they want to work on patching or whatever it is, they can change the priority to show you the Kanban board. So you see, here is Jira. If you click this, you will be mainly creating story. So you want to click this on the project, you click create project. When you click create project, it gives you different framework. Are you tracking bugs? Are you creating a Scrum project or a Kanban project? So today we're going to create a Kanban project. You click on Kanban. So they suggest that this is the hierarchy of your project. That means you can break it into epic. Epic is the highest, then story. Bug and tasks have the same level, and soft tasks. Okay, so if you use this template, then we ask you, do you use this team managed project or company managed? Let's use company managed because we have some, I don't know if they give me permission. They don't even give me permission for company managed for this one. Because I already overpass, because they give you the thing for free timing, so I have to be on premium to get this. So let's just get the basic one so we cannot run the report. That's what they are trying to tell me. Team managed. Let's take this as well. Vulnerability one. Okay, so they're asking you, do you want it to be a private project? You want it to be limited? We give access to people or open to everyone who have access to this Jira. Okay, let's say open for now, but normally your project should be private, right? So you click on create. Then you have created the board, Kanban board. This is your Kanban board. You see the Kanban board here. This is your backlog. This is in progress. This is done. You can add more. Maybe you want to add testing. Maybe you can say testing. And I think you can move things around. Let me see. Yeah, that is cool. You see? So you want your product to go in progress, testing, and done. And you can also decide to know how many items you want to put here. You want to set the column limit. You see what we're talking about, WIP, work in progress limit. You can set it. You can set, you want this to be just 4. Save it. You want this to be 4. Maybe 5. Let's say 2. I want to show you something. Save it. Okay. So let's create some story here. Can you throw me some story that I can create? Now, before we create a story, let's create an epic. So what do? You can go to roadmap if you want. You want to create an epic, and on the epic, you create story. For instance, let's say that we are talking about vulnerability. Maybe this is going to be cyber. Cyber vulnerability. Is it the wrong word here? Maybe data vulnerability. Maybe tech vulnerability. And then risk. So those are my 4 epics. And under this epic, you can create story. On the cyber vulnerability, maybe you want to do password management. You want to do patching. You want to do what else? Just give me some idea. What else? I know I have IT people connected here. What else do I put here? Maybe logging. And maybe malware. What do you call it? Malware or whatever it is. Let's stop here. Now let's go for data. What do we have? Let's say migration, one pipeline, maybe data cleaning, maybe, I don't know, migration, maybe migration. So these are the story under data. Let's talk about tech. Okay, so let's talk about maybe component vulnerability, maybe infrastructure, vulnerability. Let's talk about lambdas. Let's talk about API. API secret. Okay, let's talk about compliance now. Let's talk about anti-money laundering. Let's talk about HIPAA. let's talk about what that you call soft tasks, right? For instance, for password management, you can create something like password, maybe length, date, maybe complexity. All right. So these are what? These are subtasks under this password task. So you can do the same, whether it's patching. Let's talk about maybe how we software, maybe application. So let's go to our board. You see that this is the backlog. This is the backlog. So let's say that all what I have put in were the requirement that I gathered from the client, right? It comes to my backlog. And I already set the WIP, the work in progress limit. So that means if I move this story here, I move this story here, I move this story here, I say for, let's see, I move this story here. If I move another one, you see what happened? The flag is showing me that I exceeded the 4. Now I move the 5th story, is a problem. So it shows that this is a bottleneck on this at this specific level. Okay, remember when I create a story, from the moment I create a story to the moment the story go to done is what we call lead time. When I start putting the story in progress, from the moment I put the story in progress to the story in done is what they call cycle time. So when it's flagged like that, you as a Scrum Master, you know that this is a problem. There's a bottleneck here. You don't want it to happen. You want it to be like this. You want it to flow, okay? You set another limit to 2 here. So if I put 3, what happened? Let's see what happened. You flag. You want to put just 2. So that means the work is moving slowly. Then it's a problem if the work is moving slowly. You want that the work flow through this, pipeline, right? Through this ball. And that is what, so you want the work to be done. So that's how you flow. That is your ball. So every day when you sit with your team, they say, oh, I'm working on this and I will be done today. Either you update the ball or they update the ball. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the report here because they give you the basic one. You have to have the license to have it. But I wanted to show you, let's say when you open this, you can do more than just, you want to make sure that you have the proper description here. Okay, you want to have the description. You also want to, you can assign this story to somebody. Let's say you can assign to somebody, I don't know, assign it maybe to, assign to myself. You can label this story, okay? You can do more. They can ask you to configure more. So you have more things to do here. You have more things to do. You can add more if you want to. So that's what it means. Please, it's all about practicing. This is free. Go home, watch some video, practice this thing. It's gonna help you a great time, honestly. I'm telling you because it's really important. Any question on this? So this is what we call Kanban. Everybody's quiet today. Is everybody okay? Okay, so if there's no question, then I want to stop at this point. I think we have some idea of what it takes for us to work on Kanban. Last time we worked on Scrum, and it's that simple. It's not, nothing is complicated. Don't get intimidated. I wonder when some people say that they are not understanding Jira, I wonder what is that so difficult? I don't know. Because when you open your thing, just pray around. Don't get afraid by don't get afraid by But the software, create a free account, even if you have to pay for 1 month, it's not going to kill you anyway. It might be like $10 or $25, depending on what you are creating. You can even create dashboard. You can create a lot of things here. You can invite people, your teammate. That means they can come and contribute to the project with you. You can do integration with other applications. Like you can integrate this with Slack and Lazy BI. You have a lot of things. If you open for more application, as you, for instance, they ask you, how do you handle your budget? I always tell you about tempo and sheet. Let me see if I can take it. I can show you here. Tempo. You know, application keep changing. I don't know if they still have it. Of my time, they were having, like Power BI is one of the applications that is very good on reporting. Tempo time sheet. Okay, you see this? You can talk about this. Like you see, this application is so good. It's tracking. When they ask you that, how do you track your budget? Play with this guy. Please come here and look. Take this, for instance, this application. Time tracking, time sheet, cost, resources planning. So you can track everything using Jira. Through this, you integrate this Jira with this application. You just go and watch the video on how they do it. You try to apply it also, and you go and tell your story. Please be proactive in searching. Be proactive in learning, because this job, they will not give you because you have a nice eye. They will give you because you can deliver. This is a very good one. So I just discovered this one. I don't even know the name. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is the name. I'm just time planner. Team bottom planner. I don't know. Maybe that's the name. Team bottom planner. Why don't you go to YouTube and learn about this and then tell your story about using this to track your project? You track your costs, you track your budget using Team bottom planner on Jira, and try to create a project there for yourself, so that when you tell the story, it makes sense. When you share your story to people, it makes sense. We can even look for another one. You have multiple integration. The good thing is Jira have ton of integration with other tools. If you just say cost tracker or cost tracking, whatever it is, let's search. You see resource planning, time tracking, quantity. They have a lot of things here going on. So you can really go through this. And those are just tracking that you can use for time sheet and cost that you can use leveraging Jira. So you see, those are integrated tools that you can use. So come here and really, if you want some project management tool, you have it available. If you want some, what else? I don't know. Time tracking tools, you have it available. Yep. So that's all. That's all. That is what we call Jira. There's no magic here. It's really simple. If you come and you create a free account, play around, go everywhere, and it's not gonna cry. You click everywhere, nobody will come and slap you. Just click and learn how they do it and create your story from that. And that's it. All right, let me stop here. Okay, so any question?